Evening. It's been some week for clubs in the N-Power Football League. 10 giant killers flex their muscles in the League Cup. Blackburn shattered the transfer record, of course, lavishing £8 million on Jordan Rhodes. But thankfully for fax machines and league managers across the country, the transfer window has finally closed. So with squad numbers settled, all that mattered today were league points. Well, talking of points, a warm welcome to Steve Claridge, who'll be making a few of his own tonight as we reflect on the fourth round of games. It's so far so good for new Nottingham Forest manager Sean O'Driscoll, unbeaten in 3 and already stamping his mark on the side. This week, Forest were at home to Charlton. It's been another indifferent start to the season by Leicester City, blown away by Burton in the Cup in midweek. They had a point to prove with the visit of league leaders Blackpool.
And Yeovil Town are usually one of the perennial favourites for relegation in League One, but with Gary Johnson firmly back at the helm, they've been the division's early season pace setters. What's been your secret, Gary? Gary?
Right, first to the City Ground, where it looks like a summer of change has breathed new life into Nottingham Forest. Backed by ambitious new owners, new manager Sean O'Driscoll is already making his mark with his familiar brand of football. Well, on Saturday, they're at home to another unbeaten side in new boys Charlton. Nigel Adderley saw this one.
Forest, two late-night signings yesterday. Billy Sharp and James Coppinger are both on the bench after being reunited with Sean O'Driscoll, their former manager at Doncaster Rovers. The two changes from their last league game involve the fullbacks. Daniel Ayala comes in for Dan Harding, who spent last night at the birth of his daughter, while Chelsea loanee Sam Hutchinson replaces Brendan Maloney. Chris Powell has been loyal to the players who strolled to the League One title last season. The only change from their goalless draw with Hull sees Jordan Cook replace Dale Stevens in midfield. Former Stoke striker Ricardo Fuller is on the bench as he awaits his debut. Reed. Neatly done by Cox. And McGugan. Cox again. And now Reed. Guardiola! So unlucky. That would have been a brilliant goal. And Guardiola manufactured the opportunity superbly well. And Forest there. Very, very unlucky. Hutchinson. Forest dominant at the moment. Cox, though, beaten to it by Solly. And Cox working ever so hard there, and he gets the free kick. Solly doesn't appreciate the decision. Plenty of height supporting the Forest attack again. McGugan all the way through, and it wouldn't be Lewis McGugan if the goal wasn't special. And in the sort of form he is in, he may have been going for goal there. Hamer won't be happy with his role in it. Fired in with pace and power. Gillett. Halford, McGugan again, it's deflected! And it wasn't too far away. Absolutely razor sharp, Lewis McGugan. Solly only finds Reed. But he only finds Jackson. McGugan. And this time, he only finds Hamer. But there's anxiety for Charlton every time Lewis McGugan gets the ball in that area. And Lewis McGugan could have had 2 or 3 already. But here's Wright Phillips. And he's found space for Cook. And that's the first save that Camp has had to make, and he almost made a mess of it. The first time a Charlton player has really had a decent sight of goal, and had that been closer, then Camp could have been embarrassed. wonder if Sean O'Driscoll already thinking about when he could introduce Billy Sharp and James Coppinger to give them their Forest debuts. And it's Jackson who steps in before Blackstock for the corner. And the big men rumbling forward for Forest again. Driven in by McGugan. Guediora! Fired in by Guediora, and it was Hollands who seemed to get the final touch there. And Blackstock has not seen too much of the ball since half-time, but he was strong and composed there. Hutchinson! And a dash of Premier League quality has surely won the game for Forest. He started the move. Blackstock was strong. And just look at that run forward into the penalty area, not tracked. And what a tidy finish that was. And the man on loan from Chelsea ensures he's become a real favourite here at the City Ground. We have a Nottingham Forest debut for Billy Sharp. Simon Cox, the man making way. And Billy Sharp, who arrived late last night on loan from Southampton. Many Forest fans were calling for his arrival. There's Kenneth Clark, the MP, a very famous Forest fan. Kirkhart. Oof. Blackstock had to make that there because his goalkeeper was flying out. And Kirkhart heavily involved since coming on. Kermagong! Blocked by Blackstock again. I'm not too sure if Lee Camp had that covered, but Blackstock has had an impact at both ends in this game. Kermagong. Solly on the overlap. Oh, and Fuller, that crosses the line. And Charlton are back in the game. And there is the impact from Ricardo Fuller. Fine play on the overlap from Solly. Fuller not picked up. And that's an own goal in the end. Fuller claims it. But I think the final touch was off the post and then in off Lee Camp. Fuller. Lovely play from him. Kirkhart, the shot blocked, appeals for handball. Kirkhart's shot, they believe it struck the arm of Ayala. But here's Billy Sharp at the other end. Is it a debut goal? No. Billy Sharp there just crowded out.
You get a goal up in this division, you know, you give yourself a massive chance to get a result. So the first goal is always important, and thought once we got it, we sort of gained confidence and played really well.
Chris, in the end, do you feel you should have had a penalty?
Possibly, but over the course of the game, you know, we were beaten by a better team. You know, I'm standing here before you, and you know, regardless of maybe we could have got a penalty, whatever, you know, over the 90 minutes, Forest were a better team.
And clearly the crowd are appreciating the passing football you're trying to play.
Yeah, you know, when we try and play it and lose, then there'll be a different scenario. But no, we're trying to give people options on the ball. That's the trick to it. So if people have got options on the ball, then you try and coach good decisions. And we made some really good decisions today. Just pity they gave us a nervous 5 minutes at the end, but I'd have settled for the performance before the game.
Sean O'Driscoll reflecting what was, it has to be said, a very good performance from Nottingham Forest. A bit nervy at the end, perhaps. But consider all that's gone on over the summer, Steve. I mean, new owner, new manager, of course. 7 new signings in that starting 11 on Saturday. But already there's a real fluency about them.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why players can't settle in. We saw that, actually, against the team they played today.
Yeah, Charlton. Yeah.
They bedded in 17 players very, very quickly. If you bring players to your football club and you ask them to do what they're used to doing, and you don't ask them to do things that they're not completely at home with, they're not comfortable with, you change systems and put systems in place that doesn't suit them, then you've got problems. But if you bring them in and you play a right back at right back in a system that he's comfortable with, absolutely no reason why they won't settle in quickly. And also, you want them to play a certain way. Well, Sean's obviously been able to get that across very quickly.
Yes.
And we saw that in one of the goals, didn't we?
Yeah, well, this is it. Sam Hutchinson. I mean, the move from the right back was
fantastic. You look at he'll come into the picture in a minute. Sam's the number 2 here. Right, he goes past the centre forward, carries on his run. Very much that sort of like push and run sort of play. And a great touch, takes him right through onto the keeper, and it's a good finish. They look comfortable, let's be honest, for 80 minutes, and then all of a sudden, not really a lot that Lee Camp can do about that. A little bit unlucky, and then you're never going to dominate for 90 minutes, and Charlton had a little bit of spell there.
What about the penalty, Sean?
No, that's not a penalty. That happens very, very quickly. The player actually brings his arms into his chest, doesn't put them out, he brings them in. You can't give a penalty for that, and I don't think it actually hits his arm. It might have been hit his chest in the meantime anyway. So it would have been a little bit unjust, let's put it that way, if there had been a penalty given and they had got the equaliser, because Forest were good in that game.
And Sean's got his feet under the table quickly, and is that because he was there as assistant?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, he's had 4 or 5 months last season where he's seen what was needed, but certainly the way that he wanted to play, the players at that football club who could actually take on board what he wants and put that into action. And obviously, with the additions that he's got and that little bit of money to spend, looks OK, doesn't it?
Yeah, so far, so good. Right, more from the Championship now, starting with Sheffield Wednesday, who look to extend their great run under Dave Jones. Unbeaten in 16 in the league, the Owls are also making their mark in the Cup after they dumped out Fulham in midweek. Next up for them, an away trip to Crystal Palace.
Dave Jones warned his side of the dangers of facing a Palace side that was hurting badly. After 4 defeats on the trot, the Wednesday boss feared a backlash. Palace's start proved his pre-match assessment was bang on. His team had barely settled before Yannick Bolasie managed to get clear of Lewis Buxton and cross for Glenn Murray. The Eagles won up inside 30 seconds and flying. But Wednesday wouldn't surrender their unbeaten record lightly. Mikel Antonio fired them a warning by testing the reflexes of Julian Speroni. The bombardment continued. Mila Jedinac grateful to the crossbar for keeping him off the score sheet at the wrong end. That got Palace to the break in one piece, but 5 minutes into the second half, Miguel Llera's corner found its way to Antonio, who bundled in Wednesday's equaliser. That left Dougie Freedman's men facing a real test of character. Wilfred Zaha tormented several Wednesday defenders before Mark Beevers challenged Murray in the box. Beevers appeared to get his timing spot on, but not according to the referee, Rob Lewis. Cue mass protests from those in yellow, and after the intervention of his assistant, the right decision was eventually reached. But that failed to knock Palace out of their stride. This time Zaha tying Daniel Jones up in knots before steering the ball perfectly into the path of Murray to clinch maximum points for the first time this season. So Wednesday's terrific run is now over. Palace are off the bottom.
Stupid thing is that they'll say he got it right, which he did, but he changed the complex of the game. He changed the whole atmosphere around the place, because the fans now are baying for blood, and we're on the back foot. We've been put on the back foot by a decision that one he should never have made. It's crazy. I mean, he can't be doing that. And if he says to me, well, I got it right in the end, no, but you changed the game.
Jordan Rhodes made his Blackburn debut at Leeds. Who can only dream of signing £8 million strikers these days? But Rovers were within a whisker of losing this one, and that despite a stirring start. Marcus Olsson gave Blackburn the lead 19 minutes into a game that lived up to its big match billing. The 18-year career of Nuno Gomes has seen more big games than most. He added to his double century of career goals from Olsson's pass, a second of the season for the most high-profile of Blackburn's summer signings. Leeds can't really compete with his star power, but have confirmed El Hadj Diouf's services until January. His first Leeds goal wasn't the prettiest, but offered a way back into the match. Ross McCormack's equaliser was a whole lot better looking. His strike made it 2-2 and put the momentum firmly with the home side. Blackburn buckled under the pressure and soon fell behind to Luciano Becchio's 5th goal in as many games this season. But Leeds couldn't hang on despite giving Ruben Rashina no room to turn from this late corner. Unfortunately for them, he didn't need to. It finished 3-3, a marvellous game that had both sides claiming the moral victory.
2-0 down, everybody would have wrote us off, but you know, we haven't got that in us. You know, we've got to keep going, and we really feel a little bit down in the end.
Free-scoring Bristol City looked aside for Barnsley to fear, so Keith Hill's men seemed to decide attack would be the best form of defence. Craig Davis crashing an effort against the post as depleted Barnsley made light of their continued lack of resources, with just 12 senior players available going into the match. And when Davis had the goal in his sights again, Tom Heaton reacted quickly to keep him off the score sheet. But the home side's breakthrough arrived eventually. 5 minutes into the second half, Martin Craney popped up the perfect cross to find Jacob Mellis giving his marker the slip. His first goal of the season, the perfect tonic for the Reds after 3 straight defeats. But Bobby Hassell's wild challenge quickly put the result back in the balance. Referee Steve Rushton was equally unimpressed. Barnsley would have to defend their lead for more than a third of the match with just 10 men, against a team who'd netted 8 times in their last 2 outings. With the help of the woodwork, to the dismay of Stephen Davis, the home side saw the job through.
It was a busy transfer deadline day for Gianfranco Zola as Watford brought in 5 more players from Italian side Udinese to take the grand total to 10 before the trip to Pride Park. Derby were looking to put an end to a 5-month period without a win at home, and they're off to the perfect start when skipper Richard Keogh headed in early on. Watford had barely threatened before Derby doubled their advantage. A fine Paul Coots delivery met by the head of Rams Young Player of the Year last season, Jeff Hendrick. After 1 goal in 34 games for Wigan, Derby fans could have been forgiven for not being overly excited with the news of Connor Salmon's arrival, but he made an excellent first impression to his new employers with a fine goal on his home debut. Poor defending at set pieces was to blame for Watford's defeat to Bradford in the Capital One Cup on Tuesday. They couldn't contain Derby either here, Keogh very nearly making it 4. Shortly after the break, another set play wasn't properly dealt with. Manuel Almunia could only parry Jamie Ward's effort to highly rated prospect Will Hughes, and there was a first senior goal for the 17-year-old. Hornets boss Zola singled out Ward as the man to keep a particular eye on, but Watford failed to handle the Rams winger for much of the afternoon. He finally got the goal his performance deserved midway through the second half after an excellent run by Coots. Then 2 of the young signings from Udinese combined to pull one back, Akechi Anya teeing up Matej Vidra. But there was no hiding the fact it's been a week to forget for Watford.
I know it hasn't been a good game for us, we all know, and very disappointed and sorry also for our supporters that came over here. So we're going to make up for that as soon as possible. But, you know, we need to make sure that we are a little bit more positive when we play, if we want to play this type of football.
So Derby up and running with their first win. We'll talk about them shortly, but huge relief also tonight for Crystal Palace and Dougie Freedman. First points on the board, but Dougie will have been as confused as all of us with the referee changing his mind, what, twice at one point?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange decision, isn't it? I mean, he's not far away. It's a decent tackle. There's no doubt about that.
It's not a penalty, that's for
no,
sure.
Absolutely not. Thankfully, he gets to the right decision, albeit it takes a little while. Then gives a drop ball, and then changes his mind and gives a free kick. So I'm not quite sure how he's got to the end, but it's better than giving a penalty, which was certainly
got there
the wrong
eventually.
decision,
Yeah. Incredible game at Ewood Park. Blackburn 2-0 up, pegged back by Leeds. What an equalising goal, though, from Ruben Rashina.
Yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic game of football. It's a very cheeky back heel. I mean, it's quick thinking, isn't it? Especially when you've got your back to goal, you've got nothing on, get it stuck under your feet and bang, put it in the back of the net. So that was a good finish.
They've been saying down in Derby that a result has been coming after some encouraging performances. 5 goals against Watford. Nigel Clough quietly goes about his business, really, with signings that don't maybe make the headlines, but they are very competitive. You don't underestimate Derby, do you?
Yeah, I mean, they've taken a little while to bed in. There's no doubt about that. 1 or 2 iffy results, shall we say? Conceding 5, didn't they, in the cup? against Scunthorpe, which wouldn't according to plan. But there are one or two signs also now that he's made recently that I think will make a difference. I've always thought they're a little bit, shall we say, shy of a real goal scorer.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll be hoping that I think Connor Salmon can fill that gap, because if he can, you know, along with the way that they play, you know, and they've got a cutting edge at that football club, then they might have a squeak.
And in Will Hughes, they could well have a star for the future. Now, thanks to 3 wins out of 3, Blackpool started the day top of the Championship. But just as important was their ability to hold on to Tom Ince and Matt Phillips. Thanks to those two, the Tangerines have been scoring for fun. Just as we saw last week, of course, when they put 6 past Ipswich. Well, next up for them was a trip to Holloway's old club, Leicester, who've lost 3 in all competitions. The latest being a humiliating 4-2 home defeat to Burton in the Cup. Well, Nigel Pearson replaced the 8 who started in midweek, reverting to last weekend's 11. Ian Holloway made a couple of changes as Barry Ferguson and Nua Dicko started. Here's Dan O'Hagan.
Marshall brought through here for Jamie Vardy, and Jilks with a boot away. Marshall's corner taken short to Dyer. Here's Ben Marshall again. Marshall takes on the shot and Jilks spills it away, and then on the line it was cleared by Baptiste, but there the goalkeeper's handling was not the most concise, was it? But it was Baptiste who made sure the ball was cleared before, and it came to another blue shirt. Osborne square now to involve Ince. Back to goal. Ince turns and finds Eardley. Now it's with Thiago Gomez. Tom Ince, Taylor Fletcher for Tom Ince here. Great move, and Tom Ince with a shot which Schmeichel blocks away. That move from Blackpool was really good to watch. Punchy, intricate, nearly made the opening goal here. Taylor Fletcher in for Tom Ince. Schmeichel there got his angles right. Taylor Fletcher, ball through here, a good one as well, and now the shot's on, it comes back off the post, and there's Dicko. Well, they claim a handball there against Barry Ferguson. Good control, and the shot off the face of the post with Schmeichel rooted. Hampton here towards Jamie Vardy. Vardy's gone down here. It was Craney's challenge. Leicester appeal loudly and long, but nothing's given. Maybe an old school shoulder barge, that, nothing given. It's Craney again. Craney's ball in. Turned away by Wes Morgan. Here's Jamie Vardy now for Nugent. Flag is down this time for Leicester. This is Nugent. Nugent still now towards Vardy. Here's Dyer, and Dyer's gone down. Challenge made, and challenge is deemed a fair one again. As in the first half here, it's Leicester making all the running. Eardley's challenge there. Does he get the legs before the ball? Big shout. Maybe a big Blackpool let-off as well. One back by Kidno here now for Vardy. Jamie Vardy goes down. Referee says this time penalty against Thiago Gomez. Let's see here. Thiago Gomez on Vardy. There is a nudge, there is contact. Vardy goes to ground, takes the tumble. Gomez the fall guy. Marshall versus Jilks here from the spot. Ben Marshall! Top corner by the goalkeeper's touch. The Foxes in front. What a week Ben Marshall's having. His first England under-21 call-up earlier this week, and now on Saturday his first league goal of the season from the spot with power, precision. 1-0 to Leicester City. Dicko versus Konchesky. Konchesky in the way, but Dicko here will keep on going here. Dicko goes down. Now Blackpool ask the question, and the referee says no to them. There is a shirt pull. We'll see that just there. That was outside the box, then the tumble inside, but for me, that was the correct decision. Throw taken by Moore here. It's towards Nugent. Eardley on the stretch. This is Dyer with a shot which is blocked away. It comes back out though here now to Jeffrey Schlupp, and Schlupp's ball across goal here. They haven't cleared just yet. Dyer, what a block that is! On the line, somehow it stays out, and how does this not go in? Baptiste on the line with the block. Osborne now for Matt Phillips. Lower cross this time. It's not really cleared away by Leicester here. Here's Tom Ince. Ince with the dancing feet. The shot is placed in there. Here's Ince again. Ince across goal. Couldn't find Phillips. Real chance there to level the game for Blackpool. Tom Ince with, I think, in the end, a scuffed shot more than a pass for Kevin Phillips. Bouncing ball which Nugent will try and deal with, but Delfonso has got there first. Now Taylor Fletcher. Taylor Fletcher now for Nathan Delfonso in the middle three to find here. 5-6 to find here. Here comes the cross towards Baptiste. His header's looping here. Schmeichel's got there just the nick of time. Kasper Schmeichel got the most sleight of fingertips on that from Baptiste's header. And the whistle goes. It's a win for Nigel Pearson and for Leicester. At Blackpool's expense, they lose for the first time this season. He wants more time. There is no more time. The whistle's gone. Holloway livid. Blackpool beaten. Leicester the victors.
The boys so blatantly dived. I think the crowd played their part today, and they shouted for something, then they shouted for a handball, and the referee looked like he couldn't wait to get his lips to it, and you'd think he'd be strong enough because he's a Premier League one.
Well, it was a really entertaining game at the King Power Stadium. Both managers afterwards talking about one particular penalty incident. Well, we've picked out 4 for you, Steve.
Yeah.
If you were the referee, what would you have done?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with him. I don't think that is. I think this one is. He actually takes the man there and not the ball. This one isn't. I think that's another one, exactly the same as the first one, where Vardy gets across, and I think this one is. That is a penalty. Konchesky brings him down with his right foot. So,
Ollie's fuming.
Yeah. I mean, it's not about that. I think that's something that happened at the end. But there should have been, I think, a penalty apiece. Hey, maybe they got their little bit of luck they haven't had all season, because there's been 1 or 2 incidences, certainly so far in Leicester season, where things have gone against them. Possibly it went for them a little bit there. But, it wasn't so much about the performance as a whole. It was about getting a result on the board, because, as you say, take the Burton game out, and they played reasonably well. Desperately unlucky last week against Blackburn. So they'll think a little bit of justice has been done today.
And I suppose the need for a result was also heightened by the fact that they head into an international break.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to go, as you say, you don't want to come off the back of having a little bit of time off with a bad result. And it would have, it's a stuttery start. All of a sudden now, as you say, I think they alluded to it after the game, it looks a little bit healthier now, the league. People can just relax a little bit. You
takes
can
the tension out of the situation.
You can go to training with a smile on your face.
Right, well, time to round up the rest of the action from the Championship. We start at the Den, as Millwall, who lost to a last-minute goal at Hillsborough last week, were at home to Middlesbrough.
This was much more like it for Lions fans. Millwall collected their first home points of the season, thanks in part to a player some supporters feared they might not see again. Premier League clubs have been sniffing around Liam Trotter ahead of deadline day. It's not hard to see why. His opener was a nice way to celebrate an extended stay at the Den. But a man signed on the final day of the previous transfer window played the key role in this victory. When James Henry's shot struck the post, Andy Keogh was on hand to double Millwall's lead. The Irishman has a record of a goal in every other game since signing in January. Borough put themselves back in the match before half-time. They pulled one back from the spot after George Friend was brought down by Jimmy Abdu. Marvin Emnes is another player who might have been on the move this week. He sent Mike Taylor the wrong way to set up a very tight second half. Millwall eventually settled things 4 minutes before the end. Scott Malone picked out Keogh, whose 12th goal in 23 matches made it 3-1. That margin of victory saw the Lions leapfrog Middlesbrough in the table. Tony Mowbray blamed a lack of end product from his side. He wasn't wrong. This miss from Emnes wasn't becoming of a striker rated at £5 million. Much better stuff from Millwall, though, who at last turned in a performance at home.
The opening part of the game, it was cat and mouse, and got ourselves into a very good lead. So, pleased with the performance, very pleased with the result against a side I think will be up there at the end of the season.
Credit to them, they work extremely hard. They put the ball in your box, you ask questions of you, and if you don't deal with that, you can lose football matches.
Last season, Burnley had the edge over Brighton in a couple of fiery affairs, 1-0 winners at home and away. This looked friendly enough to start with, but there was clearly a determination in Albion's ranks to change the pattern. And nobody looked more fired up than Craig Macau-Smith. That superb strike was Brighton's first goal on their travels since March and raised the prospect of a first away league win since February. Not that Burnley would make it easy. Charlie Austin climbing above Gordon Greer to remind Gus Poyet's men this match was far from decided. And when the Albion defender inadvertently flicked Junior Stanislas's cross past his own keeper, Albion's fans feared another miserable trip home from Turf Moor. Last week, though, their side kick-started the season with a goal rush against Barnsley when Macau-Smith scored 2 of their 5, and his confidence was obvious. Lee Grant kept the Clarets on level terms, but the keeper couldn't even get close to Macau-Smith's next effort. After that stunner, Burnley were heading for a 3rd straight league defeat. Brighton sealing their success as one of Poyet's 4 deadline day signings, Andrea Orlandi, picked out Greer to atone for his own goal. It was the second, though, that will be seen time and time again.
Was that the best one you've ever scored?
Yeah, it's definitely probably in the top 2. It was just perfect. It just felt right to do that at that moment in time, and to feel it hit my foot and see it find the back of the net was a great feeling. And then get bundled by the boys was a good laugh.
Steve Bruce could breathe a sigh of relief after tying up several deals this week. Reinforcements deemed necessary after the Tigers had managed just a single goal in their first 3 league games. Owen Coyle would have demanded an immediate response from his team after their humbling by Crawley in midweek. And initially, at least, that's exactly what he got. This speculative Chris Eagles effort was his 3rd of the season. You have to go back to the opening day of last season for Bolton's last clean sheet away from home, and they never really looked like getting one at the KC Stadium, even before Sonny Aluko scored his first goal for the club. Less than a minute into the second half, more poor defending led to Hull's second. Abdoulaye Faye beat Adam Bogdan to Stephen Quinn's corner to score against his former employers. 3 minutes later, Quinn capped an impressive home debut with a goal of his own. Jay Simpson made light work of Tim Ream, then Zat Knight, and Quinn could hardly miss 24 hours after signing from Sheffield United. It could have been 4 on the hour mark when Faye rose imperiously once again, but this time both posts would deny him. Bolton's indecision was further exploited when Simpson ran onto Ben Amos's monster clearance, and Bogdan once again failed to gather the loose ball. Referee Chris Sargentson generously adjudged Simpson to have fouled Bolton's young keeper, but it didn't take the gloss off a fine win for Hull.
We've played some really good stuff today. Got, some good big performances from individuals making their debuts has helped, and it's been a good day for us against one of the favourites. It's a decent start.
A frustrating 24 hours for Huddersfield boss Simon Grayson after seeing attempts to sign Leicester's Jermaine Beckford fall flat just before the transfer deadline. The Yorkshire club are desperate to find a replacement after losing Jordan Rhodes to Blackburn. Not that Ipswich were too bothered, especially having conceded 6 the week previous. But that fragile defence was breached again 9 minutes before the break, Adam Clayton driving the visitors into the lead. Paul Jewell's men trailed until just past the hour, Daryl Murphy peeling away at the far post to head into the path of Luke Chambers. His first goal in 17 months and first for Ipswich gave the home side the momentum. Andy Drury's ball forward fell perfectly for Michael Chopra, who made the finish look simple. His second of the campaign had the Suffolk club on course for their first Portman Road win since the end of March. But with 10 minutes left, Danny Ward found space down the left and supplied the perfect cross for James Vaughan. The Norwich loanee simply couldn't miss. It was a frantic finish, and Ipswich went for broke. Ronan Murray finding holes in the Huddersfield back line, only for Chopra to rattle the post. But the vision of Oliver Norwood put Grayson's men on the counter-attack. A terrific run from Adam Hamill had the Ipswich defenders backpedalling. And Jack Hunt's surge into the box was cut short by Murphy. Vaughan now had the chance to grab the headlines. Instead, they'll go to Scott Loach for helping his side to a valuable point. But the Ipswich stopper still had one final piece of business to take care of. A strong left-handed save denying Vaughan for a second time, as both sides had to settle for the draw.
To come here and get a point and against a good team shows that we're doing okay so far this season.
With two winless sides on show at St Andrews, it was hard to work out which manager was under more pressure. There'll be a measure of relief for Lee Clark now that Birmingham are finally up and running, but they needed a hefty slice of luck against Peterborough. On another day, this effort from Michael Bostwick would have crept in. Jack Butland was well beaten. The game's only goal also had more than an element of good fortune about it. Wade Elliott's free kick was flat tapped by Bobby Olejnik, who put just enough backspin on it to outfox everyone. It's not that the Blues didn't create chances, they just couldn't take them. In the second half, Marlon King's shot was saved by Olejnik. Craig Eastman's follow-up spoke volumes about the sort of game this was. Posh are now the only side in the Championship without a point. This is their worst start in 40 years. Emile Sinclair came closest to avoiding that statistic, but in a match between two off-colour sides, it was the Blues who got the lucky break.
In our situation where we're looking for the first win of the season, you take it whichever way it comes, we're certainly a lot better than in terms of our general performance, but I think what's happened today is the players have showed great character.
Yeah, Lee Clark looking a lot happier. He certainly looked like a broken man after that midweek cup defeat to Coventry. Great win for Brighton. Back amongst the goals after initially struggling, Steve. It's now, I think, 8 in the last 2. And in Craig McHale-Smith, you can tell from this goal, he's on top of his game at the minute.
Yeah, he's certainly got his confidence back, hasn't he? Good start to last season. A record signing. Tailed off towards the back end.
Yeah.
And obviously, they struggled a little bit in front of goal to start the season, but they've actually now come into their own. He looks as if he's got his confidence back. Certainly, a player who is lacking confidence wouldn't take on a chance like that. And also, they've added Stephen Dobby to their ranks, who...
And that, I suppose, keep someone like Craig McHale-Smith on his toes.
Well, it won't just do that. I'll give him a supply line
quality,
as well between the midfield and the front play. He's a great link. He's come from a club who knocked the ball around, another club who knocked the ball around. So probably his only other option is going to be Nottingham Forest. And after that, he hasn't got anywhere else to go. But he'll enjoy his time at Brighton because they'll play as much as Swansea.
We saw Hull scoring 3 as well against Bolton. For Bolton, is it a case of carrying over the negativity from the end of last season?
I don't know. I mean, it might be a little bit of a rude awakening, shall we say. This division is a tough division. They have got 1 or 2 players that you think would serve them well at this level. There's no doubt about that. So there'll be 1 or 2 scratching their heads. I know they're putting it a lot down to individual errors. Well, you've got to cut that out. It doesn't matter what level you play at. But they'll have expected better, and they will certainly not want to finish where they are now in the league. That's a certainty. But, hey, you don't have to win every game.
Hey, look, Reading lost 4 of the first 6 games, and look where they ended up.
It's very unlikely that you're looking at the league now. It's got a really even look to it.
Yeah.
I can't see anyone really pulling away. So, yeah, they stick a couple of results together, and everything looks very different in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, next to League One, and Gary Johnson seems to be working his old magic at Yeovil Town. Back in January, the Glovers were languishing in the relegation zone before Johnson returned and guiding them to mid-table in May. But they've carried on where they left off, storming to the top after the first 3 games. Well, Clem's been west to meet the man himself.
Deepest rural Somerset. A football backwater until Gary Johnson put Yeovil Town on the map a decade ago. But having finally ended the club's 108-year stay in non-league football and secured another promotion to League One,
disappointment for Gary Johnson.
He was lured away to take Bristol City to within a whisker of the Premier League. Yeovil peaked with a League One playoff final before the fortunes of both took a tumble. Thank you very much. The manager's career spluttered with Peterborough and Northampton. His former club became one of their division's perennial strugglers. Until working with the manager he replaced, Terry Skiverton, as his assistant, from survival, talk has turned to writing another unlikely chapter in Yeovil Town's history.
Don't walk and don't look back. I did have a big decision to make, but I knew I enjoyed my time here, and we had good success. I've got 2 great friends here in Terry Skiverton and Darren Way, and I decided to come back, and we haven't looked back since.
This was probably the ideal scenario the first time round, but it didn't work out like that. I've got 3 years' experience, so he's got a better assistant manager. I've got somebody that's got the experience of being 1 game away from the Premier League, and I think the partnerships work well.
I want you to come with me because I want to go and have a look at something in reception.
Right.
Come on. Oh, actually, have you only got one suit? Oh no. He's a bit taller than you as well.
Yeah, I made a point of doing a different suit. Taller, he's on a little bit of a block. Anyway, how you doing? Right. He's been found in town a couple of times and found driving my car speeding every now and again, but that's down to him.
And the other one was, of course, the topless photo of the players. You couldn't get a shirt sponsor, so you came up with this idea.
Yeah. I didn't see the point of having a press day without a sponsor on your shirt. So I just said, well, actually, we're not going to wear any shirts. We didn't wear the shirts and we had a sponsor within a couple of days.
Come on, Dan. Come on, Dan. Boys, here he is. This is Dan the kit man. He's 13. I've been told I've got to look at it. Is it this tattoo? Oh, see. Do you do it yourself? You went to have your name put on your arm, Dan, and they put Dad instead. Did you not speak clearly to them and things? That is the best story I've heard in years. And this club's got growth left in it?
Yeah,
you know, the ambition is to take it into the Championship?
Yeah, I think that's the aim. What we do know that we've got a decent group of footballers that want to take themselves and this club into the Championship if they can.
Yeovil have never flown this high before in their history, but there was no flapping. Reuben Reid rattled the bar early on before Doncaster's Rob Jones muscled his way in to end the danger. But when Jones was dragged out wide by Reid in the second half, Rovers missed his aerial presence in the middle. James Hayter on target against his old club and suitably sensitive to their feelings, his third of the campaign. It looked good for the leaders, especially as Ed Upson raced away. He opted to be unselfish, then probably wished he hadn't. Keanu Marsh-Brown the culprit, but to the home side's relief, Gozi Ugwu on loan from Reading was much more clinical. The teenager showing why he's been able to keep pace with Hayter on the scoring front. As it turned out, Gary Johnson's men needed that because deep into stoppage time they let their guard slip, allowing Billy Painter to give the travelling fans a half-hearted cheer.
Well, that was a big test today.
Yeah, it was a good test. We knew it would be. You know, we wasn't shrinking violets. We kept ourselves in there and then a bit of quality for the 2 goals. So thought we just about deserved it and pleased for the 3 points.
So Yeovil continue their stunning start to the season, and it's incredible really, Steve, when you think that Gary Johnson's operating with a squad of 18 first-teamers, including 3 loan players.
Yeah, well, I went down there Tuesday and they played West Brom, and it doesn't surprise me they've got another good result. I mean, there's been a lot of teams that got results in the midweek that haven't got a result today. Yeah. So that shows that, whether they've had to grind this one out today, but they were fantastic in the midweek against West Brom. For 80 minutes, they matched a really good West Brom all over the pitch. They've got pace, they've got quality, they're big and they're strong. Just looking at them, and there's no doubt about it, when they start the season, most seasons in this division, their brief will be to stay in it.
And they've done that for 8 seasons
and they have
now.
to do it.
Yeah.
And then every year, every time, every now and again, a year will come along where they'll have a chance. They will have a chance to go close to the top 6, to the top 2, whatever. But it won't happen every year because you can't compete with the budget. But every year, one year,
you're saying this could be
every now and again, it'll happen. Looking at what I saw on Tuesday, they keep players fit. They shouldn't be far away. So this could be their year.
Fans might be holding you to that one. Well, it's a similar story over at Tranmere. Familiar faces helped them to a strong start to the season. Under Ronnie Moore, they began the day just behind Yeovil thanks to a 3-match unbeaten start. So could they stretch that to 4 for the visit of Colchester?
Both sides were unbeaten at the start of play. By the end of it, one of them was well beaten. Tranmere's Andy Robinson setting up Jake Cassidy for his first goal since re-signing on loan from Wolves. And he had his second when Brian Wilson deflected Jean-Louis Akpro's pass into his path early in the second half. Before this season, Zumana Bakayogo had only scored once in 3 years for Rovers. Now he's got 2 in a fortnight, as he made the best of Akpro's cutback. Colchester's day was to get even worse as James Wallace charged into the area and found Cassidy, who completed a hat-trick which carried Tranmere to the top of League One on goal difference.
A dream start for Shrewsbury. Paul Parry reacting quickest to give Graham Turner's team a 5th-minute lead at Stevenage. But the hosts are on their best ever run at home, 12 without defeat, and wouldn't relinquish that record lightly. A combination of Matt Richards and the post kept Mark Roberts off the score sheet. Anxious moments for the visiting boss, who saw his side under pressure again soon after. Darius Charles hadn't scored since January, so decided to break that run in spectacular fashion. That peach of a strike ensures his side stay unbeaten, but late on Anthony Grant missed the chance to stretch the winning run to 3 matches. A point would have to do.
Alan Judge was the architect of Bury's downfall at Gig Lane. Lee Hughes claiming a touch on the midfielder's 2nd-minute free kick, which had Notts County ahead. The worst possible start for the Shakers, who stirred themselves awake after that and almost levelled through David Worrell shortly before the break. Bury's performance was better than the result suggested, but Judge, a hot property Notts were pleased to keep, had the final say. Calm as you like to make the scoreline more impressive.
Leyton Orient arrived at the Broadfield Stadium seeking their first point of the season. Former QPR midfielder Martin Rowlands, who signed a 1-month deal this week, had one of their few chances early on. The Reds responded and almost took a spectacular lead as the ball dropped to Josh Simpson. His volley pulled a fine save out of Ryan Alsop. Nicky Adams, who once had a short loan spell with Orient, joined Crawley this summer. He should have had his first league goal for his new club here. Ben Chorley doing his bit to put him off. In the second half, Adams teed up Nicky Ajose, who appeared to be brought down by Nathan Clark after dispatching his shot. No goal, no penalty either. But when deadline day signing Mike Jones found Ajose with this pass, he struck his 3rd late winner this week. No wonder Crawley have extended his loan spell from Peterborough till January.
The golden girl of the Olympics has now been recognised by her beloved Sheffield United. Unfortunately, Jessica Ennis couldn't be with her family to see one of the stands named in her honour. She missed a belter. Bournemouth arrived on the back of 3 successive League One draws, but got off to a flyer thanks to Tommy Elphick's header. But his 2nd goal in as many matches didn't have them in front for long. The Blades hitting back just 4 minutes later. Ryan Flynn connecting with David McAllister's header to restore parity. His first goal of 2012 was soon followed by his 2nd. Tony McMahon's cross was only partially cleared, and Flynn found himself in oceans of space and picked his spot beautifully. Danny Wilson's players were responding to his pre-match calls to be more ruthless in front of goal. Manchester United loanee John Kofi crashed in a 3rd just before the break, capping off a first-half display that saw them applauded off the pitch. But the points were far from safe. Just 3 minutes into the second half, Lee Barnard met Ewan O'Kane's corner to put the Travellers back into contention. Soon after, the Blades introduced Richard Creswell, the striker on the pitch for the first time this season, having previously been left out for financial reasons. He made it 4-2 on the hour, just days after signing a new contract. That first league win appeared to be in the bag, but 3 minutes from time, Mark Pugh's strike made for an uncomfortable finish. But any hopes of a late level had disappeared when Charlie Daniels sent Nick Blackman tumbling in stoppage time. Blackman kept his cool in front of the Kop as United landed maximum points to go 5th.
It's a 5-star performance from Sheffield United. We'll talk about them shortly. As for Tranmere, staggering start, but I suppose we shouldn't be surprised, Steve, because we saw signs of this under Ronnie Moore last season, didn't we?
Yeah, when he came in, there was certainly an uplifting results. The club feels alive, doesn't it? It feels as if, a little bit of a malaise before he came. I'm not really sure quite where they were going. All of a sudden now there seems to be some direction at the football club. Everybody obviously going to get behind Ronnie. He's a real legend at the football club. And you feel like all of a sudden there's something about the club, something tangible that you can see happening.
Yeah, well done to Jake Cassidy on the hat-trick. As for Sheffield United, 5 goals from them against Bournemouth. Yeah. Great backing at Bramall Lane. I mean, 18,000. Yeah. It's not surprising that either.
Yeah, they're not going away, are
no,
they?
not at all. But I mean, these are great times. This is the kind of performance that makes you sit up and take notice, as they are the pre-season
Of course,
favourites.
and also, yeah, well, you say that, but how many times have we seen, you know, people installed that have lost playoff finals like the way that they lost it last year? And you know, I've lost a playoff final and came back the next year and I think we got beat 6-0 in our first game. Absolutely, we saw it with Reading last year, so it's not easy, you know, to get over that. But he's freshened it up a little bit. He's brought 1 or 2 in, and yeah, they're looking good, Nick. And always at that level as well. It's a tough job and a tough ask because they're under pressure because of the expectation and the size of the club.
And they brought in Dave Kitson, which will be it's an interesting acquisition, and who knows, plenty of goals to come from him. As for the rest of League One, Brentford, like several teams, have struggled for any real consistency at this early stage. They put in 2 indifferent performances before they went to thump Crewe 5-1 last week. Well, on Saturday, the Bees were at Walsall.
Walsall had struggled for goals in the opening couple of weeks, so the Saddlers could have done without seeing Florent Cuvelier's thunderbolt bounce off the bar. They needn't have been concerned. Their tenacity on the wing opened the way for Jamie Patterson to put the home side in front. And Dean Smith's team gave Brentford no chance to regain their composure. George Bowerman, with a cheeky touch in every sense, found himself in the clear just a minute later and kept his head. The Bees could hardly believe it, but Uwe Rosler's men hammered 5 past Crewe last time out, so this was still far from over. Farid El Alagui rattling the woodwork as they look for a way back. And with 4 minutes to go, the home side's nerves really began to jangle. The accuracy of Jonathan Douglas had the Londoners back in with a shout, and Walsall was seriously worried. Just before the final whistle, all they could do was look to the linesman and hope. But there was no flag. Clayton Donaldson's 4th goal in 3 games had saved the day for Brentford.
After midweek League Cup wins, both these sides are looking forward to ties against Premier League teams. Closest to Premier class were MK Dons. Ryan Lowe thought he'd put them ahead, but he was offside. On Tuesday, Luke Chadwick ended his 1-year goal drought with the brace which toppled Blackburn. 12 minutes in here, he got his 3rd in 5 days. And what a goal it was. Carlisle's form on the road has not been good, and they rarely look like finding a route towards a second away win in 14. The Dons poured forward in numbers as they sought a second, Lowe laying it off to Daniel Powell, then gobbling up the rebound for his 1st goal since signing from Sheffield Wednesday. Late on, the home side handed a debut to midweek signing Jimmy Bullard. He couldn't quite carve out a 3rd for his new team. It mattered not. On a perfect day for the Dons, they even avoided a red card for the first time in the league this season.
Richard Shaw went in search of the win to further help his case to land the Coventry job on a permanent basis. The former Sky Blues defender, who wants the gig full-time, watched Carl Baker fluff his lines at Crewe. 1 goal settled it. AJ Leach-Smith and Gregor Robertson involved in the build-up to Max Clayton's first league goal of the campaign. Coventry were below par, so much so that captain Kevin Kilban has since apologised for the abject display and for squaring up to one of the travelling supporters. No doubt his frustration summed up by a lack of a cutting edge. The Sky Blues still winless.
2 clubs chasing their first win head-to-head at Fratton Park, and Oldham's Alex Cisak stood his ground to keep out Portsmouth's Jonathan Obita. Oldham went even closer just before half-time. Jean-Yves Voto's header and Cliff Burns' follow-up. Mustafa Dumbaya rescued Pompey, taking a hefty whack in the process. Encouragement for the Latics, who rarely enjoy away trips in the league. Just 2 wins from the previous 19, so Christian Montano's misfortune seemed par for the course. But their luck certainly turned just before the hour mark. Though Jonathan Grounds widely received the credit for Oldham's goal, home defender Johnny Ertel may well have had the final touch. Portsmouth's deadline day signing will be happy to let the fullback take the glory. In the aftermath, the match turned tetchy. Obita and Byrne tangling on the halfway line. Ref Carl Berry deemed the Portsmouth youngster to be the aggressor, but after a word on the sidelines, decided the Oldham man should go the same way. The red cards failed to change the course of the game, despite Luke Rogers' best efforts to muster up an equaliser. The Latics' first win in the bag.
Last week's postponement at least gave Neil Cooper more time to calm down. The Pools boss has been less than impressed with his team's start to the new season, so when Jonathan Franks blasted his side into the lead, his mood should have improved. That was also Hartlepool's first goal of the new campaign, but Scunthorpe soon tested their resolve. Niall Canavan had the crossbar shaking, and Mark Duffy failed to make the most of the rebound. By the finish, his manager Alan Knill was left accusing his team of being sloppy, slow and guilty of taking too many touches. Josh Walker's decision to use his hands brought the severest punishment possible. That meant Steve Howard had the chance to open his account for the club that gave him his professional debut some 17 years earlier. Sam Slocum kept him waiting. But Cooper's men still managed to guarantee the win with 4 minutes to go. Andy Monkhouse teeing up 17-year-old Luke James, who sentenced Scunthorpe to a 5th successive defeat.
So worryingly for Scunthorpe fans, that's 4 defeats on the spin in the league. It just hasn't worked, has it, Alan Knill's move to Scunny?
No, I think we all understood. I mean, he's relatively successful at Bury. We all understood why he took the job at Scunthorpe. I'm not sure how many people expected them to stay up in his first year. They got relegated. But unfortunately now that they're at the level where you would expect them to be, and yet results still haven't improved. So, to say 4 defeats in your first 4, it's not a great way to start the season. And he'll know that things need to improve.
Crewe and Coventry, of course, were separated by 2 divisions last week. That makes this a terrific win for Crewe, it has to be said, particularly after what happened last week against Brentford.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I mean, I watched Crewe a couple of times and they play exactly the way that you would imagine. I think the manager's given them that little bit of direction, that bit of edge now to their game that's taken them to another level. And I think, yes, they've had periods in their history where they've struggled at this level, but I think they're going to be OK.
For Coventry, it's 3 points from 4 games. Is Richard Shaw the right man for this job?
Well, I mean, they're another side who've got a great result in midweek and haven't been able to follow up, and that's always that's the hardest thing after Lord Mayor's show, so to speak. Yeah. He's in situ. The previous manager brought seven players in. It's not like they're going to go and get another 7 for another manager coming in. He knows why that previous manager brought those players in. He knows the players. But that's fine. It's great to be in that position, and he's a lovely fellow and he's done his apprenticeship. But you've got to get the results to get the job.
Well, let's turn to League 2 then, where Oxford were the early pace-setters at the top of the division, thanks to a 100% start. The next opponents came in the form of newly promoted York.
With Oxford boasting a 100% record in League 2, you might have expected them to hold out for a little bit longer than 16 seconds in this one. But that's how long it took York to grab the opening goal. Ryan Clark spilled one from Paddy McLaughlin, and Michael Coulson plundered a 3rd goal of the season. This was the first time the 2 sides have met since Oxford won the 2010 Conference Playoff Final. After Sean Rigg rattled the woodwork, the U's were awarded a penalty. Dean Smalley's shot was handled by Charlie Taylor. Goalkeeper Michael Ingham is York's sole survivor from their Wembley defeats. He will have doubly enjoyed denying Smalley from the spots. It was the key moment in this match. 2 minutes later, York doubled their lead. Ashley Chambers continuing his early season form with a 3rd in as many matches. Oxford did pull one back midway through the half. Daniel Parslow thundered a header into McLaughlin, who could do nothing about the own goal. The Minster men also had to survive another scare before half-time. Smalley was denied by a point-blank Ingham save. The home side restored their 2-goal cushion 9 minutes after the restart. McLaughlin scoring at the right end this time. Perfect revenge for him and for York, who lost to Oxford at Wembley by the same scoreline.
Tommy Wright took charge of Chesterfield for the first time after John Sheridan's 3-year reign was brought to an end this week. An early managerial casualty after relegation from League 1 was followed by a winless start to the season. Well, the change appeared to have made an immediate impact as Craig Westcar volleyed the Spireites into an early lead. But Gillingham were back on level terms just 8 minutes later. Miles Weston swung in the cross and Danny Kedwell applied the well-directed header. The Gills had plenty of chances to preserve their 100% start to the season. A miraculous goal-line block from Terrell Forbes denied Dion Burton. There wasn't enough time for the Gills to take advantage of a second booking for goalscorer Westcar. 1-1 it finished, and Martin Allen's men go top of the table.
Accrington were chasing the win which would mark their best start to a season since their return to the Football League in 2006, and they were on their way in the 4th minute. Pauri Gamond rolling home his 2nd goal of the season. Cheltenham, unbeaten in their opening 3 league games, were close to an equaliser when a collision in the Stanley defence teed up Jermaine McGlashan. His volley was blocked by Ian Dunbavin. 20-year-old midfielder George Miller was released by Preston in the summer, but clearly feels at home in his new corner of Lancashire and was on hand to put the visitors 2-0 up. Romy Bocco, who scored Stanley's first goal back in the Football League 6 years ago, re-signed for them on Friday and was a club hero all over again as his goal sealed the points for Accrington.
Rotherham are settling in admirably at the New York Stadium, roared into an early lead by a fervent crowd for this Yorkshire derby. The home fans hitting the roof inside the 1st minute. Michael O'Connor could hardly have caught his shot better. Just the start Steve Evans' side craved against a Bradford team fresh from a surprise cup win at Watford and among the promotion favourites. And it got better. Gareth Evans doubling the advantage over his former club in emphatic fashion. The momentum was all with the home side, and it fell to Ben Pringle to maintain the calibre of the Millers' finishing. Another cracker. Phil Parkinson's men were being swept away. Bradford's hopes of a comeback flickered faintly before the break as Nathan Doyle stretched Scott Shearer and Naki Wells had the ball in the net. But there was no joy. Wells had strayed offside. Instead, Rotherham retained their 3-goal cushion until the 86th minute and then made themselves even more comfortable. Evans again from distance, bagging the 7th goal of the club's 2 league outings at its new ground with none conceded. Home sweet home indeed.
Torquay took a very young side to Port Vale and just about came away with their unbeaten record intact. When Ian Morris finished from Rennie Howe's pass, United had been under the cosh for most of the opening 39 minutes. Vale dominated this game but found goals hard to come by, but that was partly due to the brilliance of goalkeeper Michael Poke, who denied Ashley Vincent more than once. It took a freak goal to get Mickey Adams' side back on level terms. Brian Sarr completely losing his bearings and nodding the equaliser with just over 20 minutes remaining. Still, it could have been a lot worse. A couple of minutes later, Sarr was at it again. The defender centimetres away from a memorable brace. Torquay somehow hung on for a point, also surviving John McComb's injury time header. Vale will play worse and win, but that'll be no consolation to Mickey Adams tonight.
Burton pulled off one of the shocks of the week in dumping Championship side Leicester out of the Capital One Cup, so Exeter might have expected more of a challenge from Gary Rowett's unchanged side. Exeter were well worth their 3rd win on the bounce though and set the ball rolling with this opener from Jamie Curitan, the 37-year-old striker enjoying a fruitful 3rd spell at the club. Exeter amongst the League Two title favourites this season, and the early signs have been good for Paul Tisdale's side. They could have been 3 or 4 up at the break but had to settle for a 2-goal advantage. Curitan this time turned provider for Aaron Davis to rifle in his first goal for the club. While the Brewers put 4 past Leicester on Tuesday, goals have been hard to come by for Burton in the league. This was the 3rd time in 4 games they'd failed to get on the scoresheet. The post and Artur Krishak denied Justin Richards here. All 4 of Burton's strikers were on the pitch for the last 10 minutes, but Exeter then struck on the counter-attack. The lively Spaniard Guillem Bautza found space on the right-hand side and teed up fellow substitute John O'Flynn.
On Friday, Northampton's players underwent temperatures of minus 120 degrees in a cryogenic chamber to prepare them for a second match in under 48 hours. But it was Plymouth who froze early on, Alex Nichols hitting his 4th goal in 6 games. In the second half, Argyle, and in particular man of the match Onishmore Bashira, turned the game on its head. The Zimbabwe international delivering the perfect cross for Warren Feeney to equalise. Now, until this summer, Rhys Griffiths was a fireman. He put that career on hold to sign professional terms for Plymouth, and 14 minutes after coming off the bench had marked his Football League debut with a goal. Not long after, Griffiths was forced off injured. His replacement was 19-year-old defender Curtis Nelson, who marked a rare appearance up front with his very first goal for the club and seemed as surprised as everyone else. Northampton's summer signing David Artell was a width of the post away from pulling the visitors back into it. When he was on target, it was too late, as Northampton suffered their first defeat of the season and Plymouth celebrated their first win.
Another successful away day for Morecambe, who outplayed Bristol Rovers. Andrew Wright's effort was an early sign of their superiority. Mark McGee made Rovers re-watch this defeat immediately afterwards. Elliot Richards' effort was probably the highlight. Otherwise, it'll make uncomfortable viewing for Rovers. They fell behind to Gary McDonald's goal on 52 minutes and never looked like getting back into it. Rovers conceded 3 times in 10 minutes, with McGee branding their defending catastrophic and ridiculous. Nick Fenton made it 2, following Tom Park's miscued clearance. The Shrimps on their way to a 3rd away win out of 4. Rovers were denied a first win last week when a thunderstorm saw their game abandoned, but they only had themselves to blame here. Matthew Gill had their best chance. But make no mistake, Morecambe were comfortably the better side in this one. Veteran winger Kevin Ellison made it 3. Rovers have now lost 5 of their last 6 games. They drop into the bottom 2. It never rains, but it pours.
A first ever meeting between these two sides was sparked into life by this moment of real individual quality from Fleetwood's Junior Brown. But only a week after scoring their first ever Football League goal to win their first Football League game, Fleetwood's Dean Howell received their first red card. Howell was adjudged to have handled on the goal line, and Fleetwood were down to 10 within half an hour. Scott Davis then responded with a spectacular save to keep out Josh Payne's spot kick, and the 10 men were certainly holding their own when Aldershot drew level. Craig Reed looped a shot towards goal that struck the crossbar, then Fleetwood's unfortunate keeper. There was never even a hint that Nicky Mellon's side would settle for a point despite being a man down. Steve McNulty put them ahead shortly after the break with a free header, and when Payne handballed after being dispossessed by Andy Mangan, he received a second yellow and the shots were down to 10. A wonderful no-look pass from Junior Brown was returned by Mangan and then side-footed home by Brown again to make it 3-1. In stoppage time, Mangan added to his 2 assists with the Cod Army's 4th goal. It was a performance of real character, having lost Howell early on, and a first ever Football League win at Highbury.
It isn't hard for Wycombe players to pick each other out in their fluorescent shirts, and new signing Matt Parsons did a perfect job of finding Dennis Ollie. His shot trickled the wrong side of the post. The Chairboys didn't see this coming though. Ryan Cresswell's looping header cleared off the line by Matt Spring, Britt Assombalonga sneaking in to squeeze home his 2nd goal since signing on loan from Watford. Wycombe keeper Nicky Bull had already made 1 fine save from John Spicer when the midfielder called him into action once more. The visitors almost got a late equaliser. Joel Grant's cross flicked on to new signing Joe Kufor, whose shot was cleared by Ryan Cresswell. Southend finally had their first win of the season.
Having conceded 11 goals in 2 games, Wimbledon will have feared the worst when Sammy Moore tricked Dwight Gale in the area after only 15 minutes. Fortunately, Seb Brown was on hand to save Gale's penalty. But old habits die hard. The Dons' defence was breached before the half-hour. Michael Spillane unmarked as he headed Dagger's opener. The East Londoners weren't exactly watertight in defence themselves. 2 minutes after taking the lead, they allowed Christian Jolly to get a shot in. Jack Midson gobbled up the rebound. A mad 7-minute spell was completed when Luke Howell's air shot allowed Moore to feed Byron Harrison, and he needed no second invitation. Wimbledon loaned in 2 defenders on deadline day to help fill the holes in their injury-hit back 4. But Luke Howell found another one 10 minutes after the break. It finished 2 each. No prizes for guessing what these 2 sides will be working on in training this week.
It's taken a while, but Rochdale's first win of the season was pretty comfortable in the end. 17 minutes in, Ashley Grimes got in the way of George Donnelly's daisy cutter and slotted home his first of the campaign. Rochdale were by far the better side in the first half, and their second came thanks to a marauding run from fullback Matty Pearson. Dele Adebola was in the right place to score his first goal since joining from Hull City. Barnet rarely threatened, and when they did, they couldn't find that finishing touch. Jake Hyde went agonisingly wide here. The Bees find themselves bottom with just 1 point so far, and it could well be another grim fight for survival.
Yeah, much needed win that for John Coleman and Jimmy Bell at Rochdale. As for York, well, they put Oxford's winning streak to an end. I mean, terrific performances from Gary Mills' side, isn't it?
Yeah, he's done an unbelievable job, Gary Mills, since coming from Tamworth. A couple of successive... Well, they won the trophy last year, and they got promoted. A couple of successive visits to Wembley, and they managed to win them both. And I like them, actually. I watched them against Luton, and they were very, very good. They play some good football. They know when to get it forward. They know when to knock it around. It's a nice balance to them. Absolutely no surprise at doing well at this level again. So it's good to see them back, actually, as well.
Yeah, it is. Not a bad way to celebrate 80 years at Bootham Crescent. Yeah. Talking of homes, for Rotherham, of course, they're a new one at the New York Stadium. Great performance, this one against Bradford. And we've worked this out, haven't we? Because you can hear the atmosphere.
Oh, fantastic.
11,000 there.
Yeah,
in 2 home games, they've probably made up, 10 home games at Don Valley?
Yeah, I went to Don Valley when they played. It was a ghost town, as you can imagine. Absolutely no atmosphere at all. So they'll be enjoying that. I think that, we saw that it was like a breath of fresh air. What a new ground can bring. And actually a sense of actually back in the town as well. Yeah. So, everything seems to be coming together. And the one thing they will have is there will be a little bit of expectation and pressure that comes with that, but also that sort of atmosphere and more days like that.
Right, well, let's take a look at the tables then, after Saturday's results. Well, Blackpool's 100% start may have come to an end, but they stayed top of the N-Power Championship. Blackburn move into second after they earned a point at Leeds. In fact, it wasn't a great Saturday for the top 7 that began the day, none of them managing to win at all. Well, Crystal Palace moved off the bottom of the Championship. They're replaced by Peterborough, who've lost all their games so far and are the only team in the division without a win. While pre-season promotion favourites Bolton can reflect on what's been a very poor start. At the top of N-Power League 1, Tranmere have moved above Yeovil on goal difference as both continue their great starts to the new campaign. Notts County move into third after their win, while Swindon will hope to move into the top 3 with a win on Sunday. As for Scunthorpe and Leyton Orient, well, both sit at the bottom and are still without a point, while all of the bottom 8 in League 1 remain without a win. Well, Gillingham lost their 100% record, but are still unbeaten, and they move to the top of N-Power League 2. Exeter's third consecutive win sees them move into second, while previous leaders Oxford slipped down into third with their defeat at York. Barnet, meanwhile, stay at the bottom of League 2, and with Bristol Rovers are looking for their first win of the campaign, along with Dagenham and Redbridge and Chesterfield. All right, well, that's almost it. Before we sign off, a quick reminder next week, with the Championship taking a breather, we'll be focusing on Leagues 1 and 2 next Saturday, and we kick off at 10 to midnight on BBC One. That's your lot. Steve, thanks for your company, as always. So we'll see you next Saturday. From Steve and from me, good night.